This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
Well, our next guest is a 15-year NFL veteran, a 3-time Pro Bowler, a 2-time All-Pro, and a Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2023 nominee. He's also a part of the Colorado Buffaloes' first and only NCAA National Championship team in 1990. Currently, Chad Brown is a Denver Broncos analyst for 9 News in Denver. Chad is a frequent co-host on ESPN Radio. He is also a co-host of Kill You with Truth podcast about Colorado sports. He's co-hosted a weekly radio program on Denver's sports station 104.3 The Fan. He's worked at Pac-12 Network, an analyst for ESPN, Compass Media, NCAA football. He's also the owner of his very own reptile breeding and shipping company. Looking forward to talking to him about that. And he's a frequent guest and an always welcome guest here on the Extra Point on Arizona's Family. Chad Brown joins us now. Chad, how are you today?
I'm fantastic, man. How are you?
Doing well. Got a lot of football to discuss, and welcome. You are. This is the maiden voyage from our brand new podcast studio here at Arizona's Family. So if you come down here for the winter, you're welcome to come in here in studio, and we can chop it up here at our table.
Sounds great.
All right, so let's get to it. Kyler Murray returns. He beats the Atlanta Falcons. What did you make of watching that performance on Sunday, the Falcons and the Cardinals in Glendale?
Kyler Murray made plays that only Kyler Murray can make. So that's the tease of Kyler Murray. This is a guy who has an amazing special skill set. And we've all been waiting for him to take the next step with his maturation as a true NFL quarterback. Yeah, you've got a tremendous skill set. You've got an athletic ability that very few players who have ever played the position have ever had. Yet and still, there's always been something we've been waiting for him to grow into and mature into. So game one, I thought that was a tremendous effort by him. But now we have to see if this is actually sustainable, and not just the athletic plays, but the plays within the pocket, the passing on time, passing with rhythm, eliminating those 3 to 5 throws a game that we've seen over the last couple of years that leave us scratching our heads. So clean up those kind of things. You couple that with that amazing skill set and athleticism, then the sky's the limit for this guy. This is the reason why he was the #1 draft pick. That skill set is off the charts. Now we just need to see the maturity that goes with that.
All right, take me back into one of those Blitzburg defensive meeting rooms back when you were playing for the Steelers or maybe the Seattle Seahawks, and you're preparing for a game, and say you're preparing for a guy like Kyler Murray. Say you're in the Houston defensive meeting room this week. What are you talking about? What are things that you want to try to get Kyler Murray to do to try to win a football game on Sunday?
Well, if I am D'Amico Ryans, I am talking to my rush guys about pass rush lane discipline. What we can't allow is this guy to get out the pocket and buy time, because no matter how great your coverage is, no matter whether you're in zone or man, no matter if you got the perfect coverage for the route combination the offense is running, if the quarterback can buy an extra 3 or 4 or 5 seconds, well, somebody's going to come open. So our #1 goal is going to keep him in the pocket and to be able to crush that pocket around him. I'm going to ask my defensive ends, my defensive tackles, hey, put your ego aside. Sacks are less important in this game than keeping him contained within the pocket and trying to crush that pocket around him. So that's got to be job #1 whenever you're going to play Kyler Murray, because his athletic ability, it doesn't mean so much to the offense if he's in the pocket. It's once he escapes the pocket that all those types of plays happen. So defensively, let's crush the pocket. Let's maintain our pass rush lane discipline. Let's put all our egos and desire for stats and the whole back page of our contract aside, because a lot of that's based off of sacks. Let's just contain this guy, and that'll actually be the best way to limit his offensive success.
And you know those quarterbacks, they are judged by game-winning drives. Kyler returns from injury. He leads a game-winning drive. First game back in 11 months. From what you could see there, what do you feel like the conversations are like right now inside Cardinal headquarters about, do we have our franchise quarterback long-term?
I think that's a fair question. When you are getting paid $250 million, you are paid not just to be successful in the first quarter or the third quarter, but to make those game-winning drives, as you just pointed out. So we've been having a similar conversation here in Denver about Russell Wilson and his $250 million contract, and what are we actually getting for that money? Where's the value for this tremendous contract? What's coming back to us? And when they can, whether it's Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray, have game-winning drives, when they can play their best football, when it's needed the most, it makes it easier to overlook those couple of throws that we don't love, because you managed to get it together in the most critical time of the ball game. So while one game is not a big enough track record to say absolutely he needs to be our guy going into the future, it's certainly a great start and a great return for him.
How in the world did the Broncos beat the Chiefs and the Bills after losing to the Dolphins with getting 70 put up on them and also the Jets?
All right, my college teammate, Vance Joseph, defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, he's changed things considerably defensively since they gave up that 70 burger to the Miami Dolphins. A lot of personnel has been changed. The scheme has been changed. And on the other side of the ball, Sean Payton and the offense are running the ball 40 times 2 weeks ago against the Chiefs, 38 times last night against the Bills. So when you run the ball, you shorten the game, you control the clock, you limit the number of possessions the opposing team can have. So you got a defense that's playing better, that's being coached better, and they're not on the field as much. That's a huge reason why the Broncos are beginning to win some games, got 3 games in a row now. They are 4 of their last 6 as far as victories. And Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, I think, have begun to figure out how to maximize what Russell Wilson brings. We're going to run the ball. We're going to limit his down-the-field throws, not going to put him in a position where he can throw interceptions. And his numbers are never going to be gaudy. Only 190 yards last night, 114 in the victory against the Chiefs a couple weeks back. But they're winning football games, which is crazy to sound. The most important thing of all, they're more important than stats, getting those W's.
You sound like Herm Edwards right there. You play to win the games. All right, so right now, if I were to give you a choice, you could start your football franchise with Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, or C.J. Stroud. Who are you picking and why?
Ooh, man, this is an easy one for me. This is C.J. Stroud all the way. C.J. Stroud is not just the best young quarterback or rookie quarterback in the last 10 years. He may be the best rookie quarterback of all time. That's how good this kid is. That's how well they're playing. Now, again, there's a team component to this. DeMeco Ryans been a defensive-minded guy, former linebacker, defensive coordinator out there with the 49ers, now head coach with the Houston Texans. He calls the game or manages the game to give his defense and therefore his young quarterback best chance for success. He's not going to ask C.J. Stroud to go back and drop back 60 times in the game and expose him to a defense with his ears pinned back, getting after him from a pass rush perspective. They're going to run the ball. They're going to play good defense. They're going to go with some safe play action passes. They're going to not ask too much of him, but he has handled all this incredibly well for a guy who was thought of as, the least quarterback in last year's first round kind of discussion. He's managed to put together an amazing rookie season.
All right, so who is more likely then to get a new quarterback anytime soon? The Broncos, the Arizona Cardinals, or other?
Ooh, wow. Other. I mean, think about the other possible.
Because with the draft, we're looking at the draft this weekend, and we're looking at the game this weekend between the Texans and the Cardinals, and we were thinking that was for the number 1 pick in the draft. And now you're thinking, wow, is Kyler Murray going to rip off like 6 straight victories here, and this is going to ruin our whole discussion here for the spring? And then you're like, the Texans are set. They knew what they were doing, trading picks last year to get Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud. So yeah, question: Broncos, Cardinals. Who goes after a quarterback first?
I think it's going to be the Broncos. I think the youth for Kyler Murray certainly gives him an advantage from a front office personnel standpoint over Russell Wilson and the Broncos. I'm not exactly sure of the dead cap hit moving on from Kyler Murray in Arizona. I know it would be tremendous here in Denver. I think it'd be $30+ million next year, and then another $30+ million the year after that on the cap. That's not insignificant, even though the cap continues to rise every single season. With Russell Wilson's advancing age, the possibility of him never becoming Russell Wilson, who he was in Seattle, and being a game manager, you don't have to pay $250 million a year. I mean, a $250 million contract to get a game manager under center. Sean Payton being one of the better quarterback whisperers in the NFL, I think they would recognize that there is a greater value out there that can give the performance that Russell Wilson has been giving for the Broncos this season.
All right, college football now. You've been following your Buffaloes pretty close up there in Denver, and they were the talk of college football and have come back to earth. The Arizona Wildcats went in there and won over the weekend. Has Dion and company come back to earth a little bit, or is this just kind of a bump in the road before they take over college football in the coming years?
Can I say both? I think they have come down to earth after the 3 wins to start the season. Things really start to, unravel a bit. And there's been some unfortunate comments from Dion throwing his offensive line under the bus. Last week, we was talking about essentially a fight club where he keeps records of fights during practice. And hey, man, there's lots of ways to win football games, but fighting has never been one of them. And fighting has always been an undisciplined thing. So when you are one of the teams at the tops of the most penalized teams in college football, that's a discipline factor. And when you're allowing fighting in practice, that leads into that kind of thing. So the offensive line does have issues. The run game has been lacking. The play calling now between either Sean Lewis, I guess former offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur, now the play caller, we never got any real definitive answers on how that's going to unfold here. You got two guys calling plays. So it's a bit of an ugly thing right there up in Boulder. But after being one of the worst college football teams over the last decade plus, after being one of the least talented programs in the country, the talent is better. There is promise for the future. There's optimism in Boulder. And for a team that only won one game last year to already be where they are at possibly being still bowl eligible, Washington State has petered out here towards the end of the season. The Buffs can get a win this weekend against Washington State. Utah is going to be very tough after that, but still a bowl possibility after only one win last year. I think the arrow is pointed in the right direction for the Colorado Buffaloes.
Well, if you have two guys calling plays, it's hard to steal your signals. That's for sure. Is there enough NIL money in Boulder and in the greater, I guess, Denver, Boulder, Colorado area to build this thing into a powerhouse?
That's a very interesting question. Boulder is unlike so many other, traditional blue blood college towns. When you think about Ohio State or Texas or Michigan, Penn State, Alabama, LSU, it's just a much different environment. There's a significant, I wouldn't say majority, but there's a significant part of the population in Boulder that wishes football wasn't a part of the Boulder experience. There's faculty on campus who openly gripe about the highest paid person on campus being the college football coach. So there's always going to be that pushback in Boulder that is very unlike any other major college powerhouse from a football perspective. So that, I think, limits some of the NIL dollars, but the financial impact of Coach Prime has been significant to the school and to the Boulder community. I think last time somebody did some stats, it was like 160 million plus due to the Coach Prime effect, whether it's bar sales, food sales, hotel rooms. The whole impact on the Boulder community has been tremendous. So based off of that, I'm optimistic. Maybe they won't reach the heights of the NIL possibilities, but I think they'll be able to retain players and keep players. Now, Shedeur Sanders, he drives a Rolls-Royce SUV. He makes a couple $1 million in NIL dollars. Now, he's an outlier as far as college players because of his dad's status, which then gives him extra status. But there's certainly some money to be made by these kids on campus in Boulder.
What did you drive in college?
I drove a mountain bike, which got me around Boulder pretty darn good. It's a very bike-friendly community. And going back to Shedeur Sanders, when I went on campus on Thursday for an event, there was a boot on his Rolls-Royce SUV in the parking lot. So apparently he doesn't make enough money to pay his tickets. So he's got enough money to have the SUV, not to pay the tickets and stop the boot from being put on his Rolls-Royce.
Oh, my gosh, you can't make this stuff up. We did see Jake Plummer up there wearing a Colorado shirt. Have you seen him around campus? He's not – I mean, we talked to him. He's still Sun Devil through and through, but that certainly upset the apple cart down here in Tempe, seeing Jake Plummer on the sidelines there in Boulder.
I haven't seen him on campus, but Jake and I are friends. I actually helped Jake get one of his children a bearded dragon with my reptile company. So he and his family are the proud owners of a beautiful bearded dragon, courtesy of Chad Brown. So Jake and I have gotten some connection, and he's a very interesting guy. His mushroom farm is very, very cool. So Jake's always got something fun going on, and it's cool to see him up there in Boulder, which is kind of his adopted hometown at this point, and making an impact on the sidelines for the Buffs.
What does the Brown backyard look like? Are there animals everywhere?
Well, I've got an acre and a half in Arizona, which I haven't done my backyard yet, but at some point there will be tortoises and lizards living in cages in my backyard, and I'll be keeping bees as well. The animal caretaker within me never goes away. So once I'm a little bit more full-time in AZ, I am looking forward to taking advantage of all that sunshine and raising some awesome reptiles, having some great honey, and I'll probably even have a couple of chickens and some farm fresh eggs, all courtesy of my backyard.
Was this all part of like the major at Boulder? How did you become kind of like, Chad of the animal kingdom here?
While there's certainly an amazing biology department at the University of Colorado, they do not have a veterinary program. So when I was making my choices for colleges, the veterinary program was part of it. But in the end, the football part won out. I thought the Buffaloes had the best chance of all the teams I was looking at to be successful. And I can't argue with my parents pushing me to Boulder for Big 8 titles. Yes, the Big 8, that's how old I am, the ancient conference of the Big 8, but also a national championship in there. So I think in the end, my NFL earnings based off my success as a Colorado Buffalo will far exceed any earnings I would have gotten as a vet at a smaller college.
Well, and a Pro Football Hall of Fame nominee. So what would it mean for you to hear, your name called later this year, the knock on the door? What's that process look like?
Oh my goodness. Are you kidding me? It's, as they say with the Academy Awards, it's an honor just to be nominated. When you are a very fringe guy like myself, I think it takes multiple years for that momentum to build. You need somebody to literally stand on the table in that room of voters and say, here's why this guy's been overlooked. Maybe even to have some of the guys who I played against in the Hall of Fame call some of the voters. I haven't even started any of that process yet. Like I said, I'm honored to be nominated. I think I'm a couple years away of allowing some momentum to build for that to even be a possibility. I went to the Hall of Fame induction ceremony a couple of years ago when my coach Bill Cowher went in, Troy Polamalu, all these amazing former players that I played with. It's an incredible experience. To be in the NFL is incredible. To be a Pittsburgh Steeler, that's kind of football royalty. To be a Pittsburgh Steeler linebacker, that's even another notch up as being NFL royalty. And to be able to add a gold jacket on top of that, life has been far too kind to me if that ever were to happen.
Well, we could get the process started here on the Extra Point. Maybe have you in studio. We can call people live on the air. That's we can put that one in the hopper. Last question for you here. If you are the athletic director of Arizona State, they're looking for one here. I don't know if you're interested in the job. It's open, by the way. What would be your first order of business, and how do you sort of navigate this new world of college sports?
It's a tricky world. So you've got to find a coach who is completely up to speed with this world. I call college football on the weekends. I did a number of Alabama games this year. Even as great of a coach as Nick Saban is, he's had to adapt to this new college football. When you are as detailed as Nick Saban is, when you get some of these kids who only come on campus in August and you need them to play significant time for you during the season, you've got to simplify your system. So if I'm the athletic director at Arizona State, I'm looking for a football coach who can communicate complex ideas and details in a way that a kid who hasn't been there in 3 years or for 3 years can actually go out there and execute in just a couple of weeks. Your game planning and all that has to reflect the transfer portal, and your opportunity with these kids is going to be short. So you've got to, number one, get those kids up to speed so you can be successful and win football games, but you've also got to find a way to involve all those kids so they don't start looking for greener pastures other places. So if I'm an athletic director, more than your ability to scheme up X's and O's, more than your ability to be a culture builder, is your ability to navigate the transfer portal, both keeping and retaining your own guys, but also getting your guys who come in the transfer portal to be immediately successful on the field, because that is a new way of college football. It is college football free agency. And if you don't wrap your mind around that and find a way to be successful, you are not going to be a program that has any chance of winning any conference you're in or winning very many games at all.
Well, it is definitely a new world here, in a crazy world, and we appreciate your voice of reason in the land of confusion to help us help guide us through it. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.